This News from the Lab is our final event in the CERN Knowledge Transfer Series, and I'm delighted to introduce you all to CERN alumnus Lars, who was at CERN, remind me, pre-COVID, I think it was. You left just before COVID, yeah. So
right.
Lars, he holds an MSc in Entrepreneurship and Business Development from the Norwegian University of Science and Technology. And there he was researching how founders form ties and develop companies differently, how they develop companies differently based on how embedded they are in the value chains that they want to become part of. Now, while writing his thesis, he's a multitasker, Lars worked in the CERN Knowledge Transfer as an entrepreneurship development student. And one of his responsibilities was hosting entrepreneurship meetups for the entrepreneurship community at CERN. Now, since leaving CERN, Lars has spent 3 years as CEO and founder of a startup and is currently working as a management consultant at Beck. So Lars, I hand the floor to you.
That's right. Thank you, Rachel. As if I've written it myself, I would say. Now, in this installment of News from the Lab, we'll be hearing from Ash presenting CERN Venture Connect, a program that aims to connect entrepreneurs with cutting-edge technologies and the ecosystem they need to build great companies. Now, Ash and I first met in 2019 when he came to CERN and took over the Entrepreneurship Development Officer position that Ranveig Strøm held before him. Before he came to CERN, Ash had, amongst other things, been working with business development and commercialization at universities both in the US and in Australia. At the time, as you said, I was finishing my master's, holding a student position in entrepreneurship. So I had the honor of working tightly with Ash, with him as my boss for the rest of my stay there. And when I left to become a full-time founder, your main responsibility as Ash was to manage the BICs, the business incubation centers, and to foster an entrepreneurial culture. But I also remember you had started envisioning CERN taking an even more proactive role in the startup ecosystem. And that's why I'm super eager to learn more about what CERN Venture Connect has become. The floor is yours, Ash.
Cheers, man. Thank you. It has been, when Lars started talking stories about how it was. I started in 2019 at CERN, almost coming to 5 years. And, with Lars and I worked, we didn't even think about COVID as a potential issue. 6-7 months in, life changed, the world changed. And so it's been a very interesting ride going through COVID and coming out of it too. So I am going to talk about my program, where we were, why we built it, and what's the status. And then I'll finish up with a couple of stories about the people who matter. So I'll share my screen and let me know if you all see it properly. I think it's good because I can see it myself. So I'm going to be an alumni in about 10 days. Thank you, Simona and Rachel, for the invite. I've been involved with everything what alumni does, primarily because I love the team and what they do. And plus, you will hear from the presentations how we leverage alumni at CERN as well, because it's one of the fundamental parts which the community aspect of it is key. So here we go. Let me get the slides going. So this is a very interesting concept, and I learned it the hard way, thanks to my mentor. Everyone who comes into a new organization, whether it be CERN or wherever, you try to change things, change a lot of different things that happened before. I feel like frozen, but I'm going to keep continuing talking. So what is the Chesterton fence? It's a simple rule of thumb that you should never destroy a fence, change a rule, or alter a tradition if you don't understand why it was created in the first place, right? So everybody tries to come and saying, oh, look, this is broken, I want to change it, but you need to understand why it was put in the first place. And if those boundary conditions didn't change, you should not do it, right? So this was the fundamental reason why we started the program, right? So design principles were, let's focus on the founders. Any entrepreneurship program should focus on the entrepreneurs first. Nothing else matters It doesn't matter about the technology, the investors, the institution, the organization. All of it is good and must be involved. But if you don't have the founders, you're really not going to make a company, or they are the only and key actors in the whole system. So then we looked at what are the needs of these entrepreneurs. Kind of fits into three buckets. One is money. Every startup is poor by definition, unless otherwise you are one of the FANG companies and you got a big payout and you can use that to bootstrap. Expertise, everybody needs. If you're a scientist turned entrepreneur, you need experience on the business side, marketing side, or if you are a non-technical founder, you need technical expertise. Either way, you're missing some expertise to make it happen. And at the end of the day, somebody has to buy your product, otherwise you'll go broke. So you need somebody who will buy. And most of the deep tech stuff that we touch with, it's always going to be an end customer who's it's a B2B transaction, not necessarily direct to customer. So that's pretty much what we bucketed across the needs. And the one that we can give from CERN is the technology. So whatever we've developed, invented, will work for the companies. So we can give the technology. So who gives these buckets? VCs provide money, capital, equity capital, or venture capitalists, angel investors, and you can also look at non-equity funding from grants and whatnot. Expertise. This is mentors who can help you about that particular requirement that you have. In this, I want to highlight how we use CERN Alumni Network. This community is the most active. We kind of have 100% hit record. Whenever we have a startup who says, hey, how do I work or look at engage in this particular market or that customer, we reach out to our alumni, and I haven't met one who has said, I can't help you. So for that, we're really thankful for the alumni network, and hopefully you can keep supporting the startups that come and people who want to move into entrepreneurship. The customers, the large ones, are generally we do build a network, either who supply to CERN or who's in the network, and also the alumni help us there. So optimization was on the design principles to saying, what do we optimize for? And one was internal. In a transactional base, we have a technology which is IP, could be know-how, patents, copyrights, open source stuff, doesn't matter. We've got IP that has been developed at CERN. We give it to those founders who start the startup, and that's the knowledge and the technology transfer that happens. In the back end, when they build a product and sell it, they pay a royalty based on use of the technology. And this is governed by a licensing agreement. It's a very simplistic and easier way to explain how the transaction works. Practice, there is an intense amount of time delays on working out what should be the royalty rate. Can you sub-license? Is it an exclusive license? Is it a non-exclusive license? And it becomes a bespoke licensing agreement. And what I call the clock speed of how fast the startup wants to work and how a large institute works and layers of approval, you always have a clash. They want it yesterday, you can't give it for another year. So you kind of needed to figure out how do we optimize this process. This is pretty much the crux of what we've built at CERN Venture Connect. One is we've picked from a technology portfolio based on these three filters. A, the technology should be unique. Some of the alumni from CERN would know that we've got a lot of open source software, which is not necessarily unique because you've got a counterpart in the world, but it was developed for CERN's purposes, so it doesn't have necessarily a uniqueness to go to market. A lot of the hardware and some software has a unique value prop, but otherwise it's not. So for the technologies that has to be used at CERN Venture Connect, it has to be unique. It needs to have a clear IP title. We have a ton of collaborators who work at CERN, so I need to make sure, A, I have the rights for the IP, I can transfer it, or I'm the lead commercialization agent. I don't want to do this after I give the license to a startup and then corral 5 universities to sign a joint IP agreement, which I can't predict how long it'll take. So before the technology comes to the program, I wanted to make sure all of those ducks are lined up. And the third and most important part, I've got the support available from the technical experts. So this is how we built the portfolio of technologies that will go into CERN Venture Connect. If you think about the funnel, we got about 400 plus technology, know-how, expertise, competencies at CERN. We filter that down to start with, I think we have 7 right now, and our hope is that, years coming, we go get to 10, 15, 20, so that this is the ones that we can push forward. The second part was getting a standard licensing agreement. It doesn't matter whether you're using hardware, software, everybody has the same licensing agreement. It's a non-exclusive license to start with, which triggers into an exclusive. But we take 0% equity in those transactions, and the royalty rate is 2% on net sales. The startups don't pay CERN until that royalty is accrued to 20,000 Swiss francs. If you do the reverse calculation, it is 20,000 for every million in sales. We really want these startups to succeed. If they fail at 999,999 Swiss francs in sales, they owe us nothing. We say, thank you for trying. Sorry, your startup didn't work. The IP comes back to CERN. We got some internal funding. We hustled some money. Half the money we're using for prototypes. I'll talk more about the prototypes in the coming slides. And 50% of that money we're using for new technologies to build into the pipeline so that we go from 7 to 15. Then we reached out to the partners outside to optimize how fast a founder can talk to the VCs, the incubators. All the requirements that we ask for them is, A, they scout for startups and ask them to apply for the program. They promote the existing of CERN Venture Connect, because that's one of the biggest issues that we find is people know about CERN, but they think, oh, you do particle physics, you're not going to do support startups, or that you work with the big, large companies and not necessarily with 2 to 100 people. So that's pretty much where we wanted to get the message out to these folks that we want to work with them. And support the CVCs. They invest or make sure they have times to talk with the startups and make introductions. So we built the community in the back end. So this is kind of how the structure looks. So if you look at the process, the startups apply directly to CERN Venture Connect. They look at a technology, all of the recordings with the inventor, all of the data sheets, and everything is online on the website. So you can look at the technology, understand what it does, why was it created in the first place for CERN, where are the use cases, and so they can use it. Then once we select them into the program, they sign the standard licensing agreement, so they've got access to it. They can use the logo CERN Venture Connect and promote that they're part of the CERN Venture Connect program. We give free prototypes. So there's a lot more on the free prototype. Just hold on for that thought for a minute. So if there's a technology and I have a prototype, we give them the prototype for their use cases. Then we go into our partner network. We've got 24 signed, 25 in progress, and 10 of them said, look, this agreement has to go to my US office. By the time it comes in, it's a pain to sign these agreements. We'll support you still. Are you okay? We said, like, absolutely. So it's a combination of venture capital, seed, pre-seed, seed, Series A, and growth capital guys. Network of mentors that we've got, and some really good incubators who've got specialty focus. For example, they do photonics, they do hardware. So we connect those areas of expertise and their centers of excellence, and large companies who have their own CVC program, the other CVC, which is a corporate venture capital program. So we partner with them. For example, Microsoft is one of our partners. So if a startup working in AI, they get the whole Azure backend and support those startups. We don't ask them to change their selection process, but we've got a relationship with the Microsoft program that say, hey, look, we've got an amazing founder, CERN technology, validated for this use case. It'll fit into your program. And so they take the startups and they support it. So we pretty much have built this platform where we connect the founders to the external ecosystem as well. When we talked about this to outside folks, they're like, isn't this just another accelerator or a venture studio? 100%. I guess the side story is I didn't want to build an accelerator, and I was told, no, you can't build it, because one of the not so great answers was people will get confused because CERN, we accelerate science, we accelerate particles, and we have an accelerator again, not sure the messaging is right. So, all right, no worries. How about I build a program where we support founders with mentors, introduce them to the investors, and provide all the technical support so that they can be successful. Fantastic program, go build it, right? So in essence, what I built is an exact accelerator. However, when you put the constraints of how CERN as an intergovernmental organization works, all of the tweaks for giving the prototypes, having a standard agreement, all work because that's the way we can optimize time. And the one that we pitched was measure me on what I have control over, not something that I don't have control over. I.e., if a startup doesn't do sales, it's not on me. There are a lot of parameters on why the startups couldn't do sales, or they did. If they did well, I can't take the credit. If they did bad, I can't take the blame either. What you need to measure is we are a service provider. How fast did I give the technology? How fast did I get the agreement done? How fast did I introduce to the network? So that's what the whole CERN Venture program, me, now Lynn will take over, have control over. So measure us on that, not the other one else. So other venture studios promote number of startups, amount of money raised. I don't think we're going to be measured in there because we're going to look at best case 5 startups a year. If we get 10, I think that's going to be a brilliant year. Now I'm going to talk about 3 stories just to showcase who and why this is, and when we remove those fences, who did it help? This is the first CERN Venture Connect spin-off, Reshape Systems. We talked with the founder for about a year, and we threw the kitchen sink behind it because we wanted, this is our guinea pig, but we wanted to make it work. But it matters because of people behind it, right? So Andrea Apolonio is the CEO and founder of Reshape Systems. Reshape Systems was based on his work at CERN. He was in charge of fault risk analysis for the LHC, which were the components that failed, how fast they failed, what are the risk parameters. And he was the head of machine learning and AI committee at CERN as well. So Andrea's story is started as a PhD fellow, staff, finished his staff contract and went and did Reshape Systems. The photograph that you see below was a few weeks back, where Reshape Systems now has built an entire AI predictive model. So if you give your inputs on your complex systems of hardware, what your risk profile is, Reshape will provide you a full guidance of where the risks are, failure modes, how do you mitigate it. They're actually doing a collaboration agreement back with CERN, with the fire department, to help them with, here's all of this risk mitigation strategies for it. So it's a CERN knowledge transfer through person. There was another piece of IP he licensed from CERN, and he's built a product and gone to market and come back and helping CERN. So this is kind of what we want these startups to do. So this is where I want to talk about prototypes, right? So this is one of the technologies which is going to be part of CVC, which probably should go on the website in about a week. So this technology came from the Radiation Protection Unit, Health and Safety. They've created the world's best current measurement, ultra-low current measurement ASIC. So it measures up to 200, top sensitivity is 200 attoamperes. So literally measures 800 electrons per second. We designed all of it in-house. It's used at CERN. And we use the multi-project wafer run, where we can run these wafers, package it, and get it on roughly around 40 Swiss francs per chip. Now, I can go, so we have 2 kind of personas of startups who come to CERN. One is Andreas of the world, who are the scientists from CERN or scientists from any other institute, who come and say, oh, this is an ASIC. Let me focus into and saying, let me redesign the ADC. Let me do it on a different node where they're scientifically focused and they look into the technology a lot more. And the second persona are the people who like, I don't care what this ASIC does. I want to plug something in, get the output, because my expertise is in another field. They might be a surgeon. They might be, doctors or within, the medical world, where they don't care what the chip does. It's a black box that they're looking at. So if I give this $40 chip to them, it doesn't mean anything because they have to hire a board designer to figure out, the PCB layout, put the microcontrollers in there, write the firmware code. And that's going to take longer for them to get to market. And then they'll have to test if that works and then go test it on their use case. So with the money that we had from for the CVC program, we went to the inventors and said, hey, look, I'll give you some money. Can you do for the engineering cost to design a board, put this chip on it, and so that we can give this board for the early adoption or how fast this technology goes into product. So this is the actual board that came out. Now it's being populated with all the components. It's all designed at CERN, pick and place at CERN. We got the components. The board should be ready next week. It's got a display. It's got an FPGA, a microcontroller, software, the GPIO pinouts if you want to understand what's happening. But then, and one of the startups is working on using this for a DNA sequencing, right? So if you look at how DNA sequencing works, you take a DNA strand, use CRISPR, cut it in half, and so you've got the A, C, T, G all at different points. You put it in a nanopore, run it through it, and then it produces current. On the y-axis, how you measure is in current, and that's in picoamps. So this chip now gives you 1,000 times better zoom in on that picoamp, but the attoamp to saying, or femtoamps to saying, so that you can look at it at a very high-fi, or, the fidelity goes into saying where your y-axis stops. So our view is, here's a platform. You can use this current sensor anywhere where there is a control mechanism. We don't know the use cases, but we don't want you to wait 8 months to build this board or 1 year to go get this, tape out done. Here's a board ready to go. If you figure out the use case and prove this thing works, then we introduce to the VCs to saying, here's an amazing founder. They're using CERN technology. They've done this use case. Their customers love what they're doing. They need to raise capital so they can build these chips going forward. So that's the entire thing of why we want to give these prototypes up for free. The rule, what we want to tell, or we tell all of our startups is, use it. If you break it, we don't care, but please don't break it, but try not to. But if you break it, that's all good. So, and it's free. We don't charge them for these prototypes. So our entire aim is, how fast can I get this done to enable it to transfer? And this is the last slide, and I'm glad I got to the end of the slide deck without another technical hiccup. Hamza and Sarat are the two folks behind this accurate chip. Hamza is the project leader. He's the head of section for a part of the radiation protection unit. Sarat is the senior technical fellow working on it. None of this will work without their support, right? And we keep on focusing on the model and how this works and what works, what not. If there is no support from the scientists, I don't think any of the transfer mechanisms work. Our program design was to base on how can we support Hamza and Sarat to saying, hey, look, you've already done the hard work of designing this, building this. Right now, it's got massive potential outside. How can I get this to market faster? How can I help you to make sure that I remove some of those technical challenges? So forever I'm indebted to Hamza, Sarat, Andrea Polonio, and now another technology we're coming up in space is designed by a chap called Salvatore Danzier. So folks like this are the ones who make this magic happen. And again, thank you, Hamza and Sarat. And that's the end of my talk. Happy to answer questions.
It's really impressive what you've been doing the last 5 years. Because we were putting our head in this wall when I worked with you. How do we create, as you said, an accelerator? How do we enable these people? And we wanted this people to take our technology. And I remember the road towards the negotiated agreement for use of the technology felt so long, especially when you're not certain you found the market and the product fits and the technology is a part of it. So why spend time on negotiating the agreement? It sounds like you've taken a lot of friction away from the process, connecting startups to CERN.
The problem has always been the mindset of, this startup is going to be the next Google. They're going to make trillions of dollars and we're going to miss out, right?
Right.
But what the reality is, it's going to be a very small subset of folks who get there, right? And that's even in the applied stuff. Stanford's got only one Google so far. They've got other billion-dollar companies, but not trillion-dollar companies. So
exactly.
You're going to find this once in a 20-year, once in a 30-year cycle. But the view set is always, there's so much of money you're leaving on the table and you're not getting value capture on those. But in reality, 90% of the startups are not going to make it. So your efficiency gain is to get this as much as possible outside, but it's always been the sticky point of what should the percentage be?
Yeah.
And my view, and this is where the fence removing part came in, was all startups want to have a hockey stick growth. Nobody wants to fail. If you you don't want to succeed, then startup is not the right thing to do, right? So everybody wants to grow. Everybody wants to be that high growth startup, and everybody has a hockey stick growth. So those numbers, the only thing you know is wrong, realistically. And so if you're taking a percentage of a wrong number, you're going to end up being wrong. So instead of figuring out, is it 3%, is it 2.4, is it 5.8 on a number which is facetious to start with, why not have a realistic baseline? And law of averages will even it out. Some startups which you thought will not do well will do well, and your 2% will be worth it. And some startups you thought will do great will fail, and it's still 2% of zero. And we have no risk as CERN, and somebody else taking the risk. But those founders will come back and do something else again, right? And so that's pretty much where the ethos came from of averaging it, because the startup team or the entrepreneurship team is always going to be two at CERN, right? We should not be wasting time on figuring out the minimalistic deltas, but rather focus on where you can move the needle. And so that's why the whole programming took place, to saying, this is what we want before we launch, so that this framework is done, nobody can change it, and you can't predict the numbers too, right? Somebody asked me, what should success look like? One day a startup should end up paying $20,000 every month, which is brilliant. It means they're doing $1 million a sale in a month. That is what success looks like.
But it's as you said, I remember you quoting Brad Feld and shaking his book, Startup Communities, and the whole notion of giving first and how that built the ecosystem down in Colorado back in the days. It sounds like you're doing a lot of good in terms of that as well, removing the friction in the prototyping as well. My university in Trondheim has had some startup collaborations with CERN, and I remember the time to actually get hold of the technology used to be pretty long. And now you're removing all of that friction, at least for a limited amount of the technologies that are available.
Right.
And I'm guessing you're always adding new technologies into that pool as well. I
Look,
think it's
so
really,
one
really
of the things is, what we did was on resource constraint planning, right? By which I mean the only resource that is in dark for me is availability of these experts who all have a daytime job.
Yeah.
So here I am, like, oh, there's a student team from here, here's 40 other people coming, let's all talk to them.
Yeah.
And they've been kind and giving the time, but at some point in time, it's like, look, I'm too busy. So my view was, most of the calls were, put it bluntly, people without the technical background, and unfortunately some were younger folks.
Yep.
So tell me what an electron is. Tell me how a laser works, right? You should Google that before, because you're wasting somebody's expertise on time on explaining you the basic concept. So our aim is, in the Venture Connect, under each technology, there'll be a recording with the expert to say, why did you do it? How does this work, right? Google it. Then when you come back, so I remove from 40 1-hour Zoom calls to one Zoom call where it is more like, oh, I want to know more about the quantum lacing, or how does this ADC work? Why does this GPIO 15 pinout doesn't work? Where you're going to ask the scientific thing, could be a bug in the tech already, which will mean that it'll trigger another discussion. Oh, we didn't think about it. So you actually improving the engagement, rather than to saying, okay, I'm here for an hour, you tell me why lasers work, is not ideal for both parties, right? So this way, it optimizes the resources, which gets a lot more appreciation from the experts as well, that you're not wasting their time.
Yeah. Cutting some time from the negotiation of any deal you need to do to get the access to the prototype, and then also limiting access to the brains until you have questions that actually the brain is needed to answer. I see we've some questions, one from the chat and then one raised hand. We'll start with Amedeo, calling in from Spain.
Exactly, from Spain. Hi Ash. Hi, Lars. Thank you very much for this talk. It was very, very interesting. Ash, it's unfortunate that you're leaving now. What's happening after your departure? I'm sure the project's gonna live on after you, right? So what's happening?
Okay, I hope it was you who's lost. I'm still there. Look, the program is going to keep on going. And I'm glad and happy that my successor, Lynn Kretschmar, is in taking over 1st of May. And so in a way, a lot of the program design took longer for us to do. Now the platform's set, right? So we don't have to fight more fights. The fights are done, the program's done, it's operational. So our aim, or Lynn was going to take over, is, these processes are done now at a point where, so there were a lot of hypotheses we had to prove, right? First, existing thing was like, no partner will sign up for this. You're not going to get any partners. Said, all right, let's prove you wrong. Let's go sign up people. We signed up 25. And then we've got another 20 in pipeline. So now I've got the problem other way around. I've got too many partners who are all asking where the startups are, right? And so we're like, okay, stop the partners right now. Let's focus on the startups. So there's about 6 in the pipeline right now. So we'll at least get to the 6 this year, and then have everybody over. And so this program is my baby, and I'm super happy. Lynn's going to take over. It's in fantastic hands. So I have no qualms about the program surviving, and I'm happy I'm leaving it at a stage where it can sustain.
Great. I'm sure Lynn's going to do a great job. And I know there's some questions in the chat. I just wanted to ask one quick question more. If we don't have necessarily startup ideas, but we're very passionate about entrepreneurship and wanting to pursue that in a career, is it still possible to sort of look at the projects, look at the different technology and competences, and see a place where someone could fit into working on projects or discovering and making new ideas?
Absolutely, man. So the way I look at it is this, right? There is this concept of the sticking factor, right? Which is hard to measure, hard to quantify it. Which means the way I define it is, I spoke to this chap. I don't remember his name, but he was at CERN doing something at startups. He was talking about this current sensor. Let me see who it was, and I'll send him a note. It will not happen now. It will not happen in 6 months. It could be in a year, right? And so that's where you want to, the Americans call it increasing your surface area of luck. You never know who comes in, where it comes from, but you have to be present. And the challenge for us was, is 23 member countries and 8 associated countries, right? I can't be in Brazil. I can't be in India, right? And so what we said was, there are some really good folks in those areas who knows the ecosystem, rather than me sitting in Geneva and telling how things should work in the UK or in Germany. No. So we wanted folks who are there who knows this, right? The other part is, nobody looks at CERN social media from the startup world. There's a very small segment who look at it, but not, there's a very minute. But every startup founder who's interested in startups, who is now doing it or looking to do it next, or if they want to be in the ecosystem, follow the VCs online channels, right? And the VCs love to talk about themselves. So they do it on Twitter, LinkedIn. So the aim is, if other people talk about your program, the founders who raise money go and talk about what this program helped them do it. That's the difference between me boasting about how good it is and actual praise from somebody else to say, hey, by the way, it is, right? And the second option that we're going to do is also, like, if you look at the Accurate board, we want to give it to places where founders and people who are interested in startups congregate, right? So I'll go give it an incubator or a startup hub who run, getting people, hey, here's a board, right? You manage to say who wants to play with it. I don't care if they break it, but here's one, right? And if you come back and say, hey, I need 10 more of those, that's a good problem to have. Based on how much budget we have, we'll make 10 more boards if needed. But that's where you want to go to, where the system can't handle the current load. Right now, I've asked for 10 more boards. It's like, let's see how it goes, because so we are in a startup phase still. There's a lot of things that you need to fine tune, but the biggest thing is being present where people are, rather than expecting people to come to you.
Okay, thank you very much.
I remember you mentioned the increasing the surface area of luck. It wasn't one of the key talking points to Mait Muntel, CERN alumni and founder of Linguist, when he was talking in the meetups in 2019. I thought I forgot a lot about what happened at the time, but this is bringing back some great memories, you know?
Hope it's good memories and not PTSD, man.
Right. Well, there's another question from the chat to you, Ash, from Dr. Johannes Mattman. He says, "Hi, I love the program. Is every possible technology that qualifies for the program listed publicly? I checked the website and there are currently 5 items listed. How does the discoverability work when you're outside of CERN?"
So those 5, I can cross my heart and tell you I can give you a prototype. The technology is available. I can give you an expert to talk about it, right? So if you look at outside of the portfolio, we got about 250. If you come and say, hey, I like the superconducting magnetic stuff or the yes, the technology is available, but I can't give you the same guarantee that I can give you a prototype or this will be available. So the reason why those 5 are listed, which is going to be 7, Accurate is not there. Another one called Astromesh is going to come in. So those 2 are fundamentally the, what we promote a lot for the next year. So wait and watch. Hopefully Lynn will do it by June. So those 2 are the technologies. White Rabbit has its own collaboration, so it'll go into that. So this technology portfolio, we know they're a platform. There's a ton of applications, right? So we'll put there. If you go to kt.cern and you look at our available technology portfolio, there is competencies, know-hows, patent portfolios, and technologies based on each of these concepts. So that is a overwhelming amount of technology. Sometimes it's like, you have to filter through all of them to find the discoverability of it. We started with the 5 because this we think are super unique. You can't find an equivalent in the market. And that's why we picked those 5 to start with.
I see Simona posted the link to the KT Tech
Merci, Simona.
website. So there's an exhaustive list there, and I think there's stuff that is not even there. And if you want to have access to that, just talk to Ash the next 14 days and ask him tell him what problem you're trying to solve, and he'll dig down in the folders, right? Do we have any more questions in the chat? I see Ravi has one. Go ahead, Ravi.
Yeah, Ash. So firstly, greetings to everyone. And my name is Ravi. I'm from India. And really great to listen to all of you, especially Ash. And Ash, I just wanted to know, since you are completing the 5 years at CERN, what is the most inspiring story you would like to share, or an anecdotal, or any interesting thing which you have experienced, in one of your experience so far at CERN, and which you would like to share? And so, especially for young people like me, because I'm an IP enthusiast and I really want to do something in this field. I'm building up my skills, and yeah, so looking forward to hear from you. And yeah, anything you would like to share from your experience, anything. Yeah.
Look, experience. So one thing, I guess, looking back, a lot of people will always tell you this will not work, right? It's no different than a startup world. And it used to irritate the life out of me, right? But one thing I was talking to one of my mentors and said, like, man, this is always naysayers. And he said something which makes sense now looking back. If everybody around the table agrees to what you're proposing, you're not being ambitious enough, right? Because people anticipate it. All of what you propose, and if there's a panel of 8 people, all of them nod, that means you have taken the risk so low that you can put it in a presentation and present to them 2 years later and say, look what I told you 2 years back, I've achieved all of them.
Yeah.
You're aiming low. So that next time you go tell something and people say, this will not work, think that you're onto something, right? So now when people agree to what I say, I kind of go like, oh crap, I need to push that. So that was one of the learnings. Anecdote wise, somebody was talking about CERN Venture Connect to me, saying that this was a brilliant program outside, and saying that this is brilliant, and folks like me need to learn from there. I nodded and said, oh yeah, I'll go look at it. So that was really, I guess, the cream on the top when people told your program was good to you. So that was good.
Thank you, Ash. Notes taken. Think big. Yeah.
Cheers.
I remember, Ash, we also talked to a lot of potential founders that had startup ideas that weren't connected directly to the IP that we had in KT. And it's about like building the entrepreneurship ecosystem at CERN, nourishing the founders, because the brains are is some of the most important thing that comes out of CERN, in addition to our technology. And I just wanted to ask you about the those kind of cases and how they might fit into Venture Connect. Does it have to be connected to the IPs?
Not necessarily, right?
Okay.
So if you look at Andrea, the first spin out,
Yep.
So we have technology portfolio called automatic fault tracker, right? So what the fault tracker does is look at the entire system to say, building 33, base floor number 1, that's where the fault is, right? So, but if you take it out, you need the Oracle server, all of the dependencies of CERN's building numbers, the Remus system, and everything else to saying where it is, but you can't really take it out, right? So yes, the IP is CERN's, but it works only at CERN, right? If I go put that in another large institution, I need their map, their structure, everything else, put Oracle back again, and then on the top of it, this will work, right? So in a way, yes, the IP is ours. It's not open source. It was built for CERN and used by CERN. There is a bigger use case outside, but it'll take you 2 years and two FTEs to pull all of those dependencies out. Now, yes, that is IP owned by CERN because we developed it, but the transfer part of it and what it would look like as a standalone project would not be the one that looked at what it started with, right?
Hmm.
And that discoverability is hard. Somebody from outside will never be able to commercialize this because till I spoke to Andrea, I didn't know that existed either, right? So I think, not to quote Donald Rumsfeld, way back when he was Secretary of War, he said there's the unknown unknowns. There'll always be unknown unknowns. Known unknowns and unknown unknowns are different concepts, and it's hard to find unknown unknowns. So yes, if people come up and say, this is what I truly believe in, and this is going to be big, you're more than welcome. And the other thing that we really put into CERN Venture Connect is it's not one size fits all, right? So if you're a startup founder, you come in and say, I just need the technology. I know all about VC, how to raise money. I don't need mentors. Absolutely, right? So you don't have to have that support from the network outside. Go build it. 6 months in, you change your mind and say, actually, I need support now. 100%. Come back, we'll introduce you, right? So it's not like if you don't choose it, you don't get it. Because there were serial entrepreneurs who went through the previous program. They could teach an accelerator how to do things, but they then still asked to go do your business plan canvas, which was a travesty. So our view is it matters what you need now. If you want help now to go to market, I'm happy to help. You change your mind, happy to help. End of the day, it is more for you to take it to market, right? There's a couple of, I think, stress points with the program, and we're trying to build it and anticipate it. One is, what if I give you a non-exclusive license in that particular field, and another group comes and asks for the same thing in a similar space? The only person who will know this is the people running CVC. So what our plan is to tell the new startup coming in saying, hey, we've already given the license to another startup. It is non-exclusive. I can give you another non-exclusive. It is not good to them nor you. They've got a year head start on you. Work with them. They're looking for good people. You don't have to do another startup in the same thing and try to compete. It's not a big enough market either way. So work with them or get a license from them. Because I don't care who pays me as long as somebody pays me. And it'll be a lot faster if you both work together, right? And so that is one anticipatory issue. The other one is exclusivity. How do I trigger an exclusive agreement? Still not in the contract, but hopefully before I go get that done, I've got 10 days to do it, is to build a trigger for an exclusive license. Either you raise $1 million in outside capital. If you want to bootstrap it and you go to $1 million in sales, then it should automatically trigger into an exclusive license. So that's what we are trying to build it in, so that if a startup gets to 1 million in equity funds, goes to a full exclusive license. Or you don't want to raise money, but you get paid the first $20,000 on royalty. You get a full exclusive license, so that you don't have to come and renegotiate it at that point.
Maybe even have like a clause that says it's all automatically exclusive when you've raised that amount, so that
Exactly.
you don't have to tell the investors, well, it's not exclusive right now, but it will be when.
Exactly. So
you know.
once we put that agreement in place where it's an automatic triggered clause,
Cool.
all you have to do is get your valuation and that show the proof of million coming in, then yeah, it's an exclusive. Because most of the discussions come in is like, oh, the VC will not invest because it's not an exclusive.
Yep.
Some of it is true, some of it is because the VCs don't want to say no straight to your face, and they find a reason saying, oh, it's too hot today, too cold tomorrow.
Right.
So
Right.
we want to remove that to saying, hey, it's in the agreement. If you put the million in, it becomes an exclusive, so that we can remove those hiccups in the future.
Yeah, exactly. Since we're doing this as an alumni event, I'm curious to learn, and you're becoming an alumni too, so you should make your bed before you sleep in it.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, how will this be available in any way? Like, how are you working with alumni? Like coming with startup ideas or being interested in entrepreneurship after working at CERN. You're talking to entrepreneurs at CERN. What are your thoughts on that?
Truth be told, we haven't worked with the alumni on the startup side of things, right? So it's always not, we haven't been giving first to the alumni community, but taking first, because primarily this program was the proof of concept of this was to say, hey, we've got external startups coming in using it. So if it's an alumni startup, even the merrier, right? But I guess the same thing, visibility is not there. So that's the reason why, we wanted to do the talk, is now the alumni can know there's a program. Of course, we'll open the, put the red carpet out for the alumni. So the tech is there. If you find a use case, come talk to us. Absolutely, 100%. But, so if I look at it, there is current CERN folks who want to do spin out, like Andrea talked to us when his last year of contract. That's priority number one, folks who are still at CERN. Second is startups outside, right? And if I put a priority, if an alumni comes in, because they're gonna be, we're gonna treat them as best as we can. So external startups, internal potential new startups. That's kind of the two umbrellas or two sects. And one is alumni fit into the external startups.
Sorry to interrupt, Ash. We've got alumni in the audience today, I know, who are going to be moving, who already are in entrepreneurship, who are planning that move into entrepreneurship. So
very cool. I hope you reach out to Ash afterwards. I see we have two final questions. We only have 4 minutes left. Dr. Johannes Machtmann, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, hi, thanks. So that alumni aspect is what I was heading for when I was at CERN. That was like 10 years ago, and I've still been involved because I love the spirit. And actually, at my time then, I met a few people, or I met them, or some of them I already knew, who started startups at that time or later on. And I found that very inspiring, and there was no platform for that. Now, I mean, I left CERN quite some time ago, but still, it would be great. Like when I learned about this on the alumni mailing list, I found that a very, very good, like how shall I say, like condensation point. I don't know, like where that interest could be bundled in a sense, and it would be awesome if there could be events. I mean, they don't need to be on site or anything. They could be purely virtual, but if there could be repeated events such that the community can grow, because it would be, you mentioned that the founders are like the key point, but sometimes it's hard. Like, you may be a technical founder, but you may not be good at entrepreneurship already. Whilst from my perspective, I'm working on my second company just now, but I might be looking for someone. That's why I was asking about the technology list from the perspective. I might be interested in like joining a team or like starting a team, but I might be interested in having somebody from like who's still working on the tech to join. So it would be amazing to have like a meeting point. Is there anything on the agenda?
So yes, 100%. Thank you. So the 2 parts to it, right? One is the existing dogma that you're scientists, you don't know enough about entrepreneurship or business. That's a prevailing dogma, and we wanted to move that because people like you can go, do startups. So when other scientists look at it, say, "Oh, Jonas looks exactly like me, and he's done a second startup, so I can do it too," right? So representation matters. And so yes, we Mike Munzel, who Lars talked about, he's been one of our mentors. Always, takes time to talk to founders and say, "This is what I did. I'll introduce you to the 20 people you need to talk to," right? And so, but it was always one-to-one hand combo because we never automatized anything. So coming to events, one of the things that I wanted to do, but I wouldn't be able to do, but Len's planning to do in probably Q3 of this year is one, bring all the partners together, right? So we got 24 partners and none of them know each other. The VCs know each other, some of them don't know. So bring all of them together at the same place so that everybody knows, and bring folks to say, "Hey, look, all of them are going to be here. We got a big event, couple of day event. So why don't you all come? You're interested in startups, you want to come. Here's an opportunity to be back at CERN so you can hear about what's the state of deep tech, where is the investment folks looking at," and so have that as a one-off event. And based on that, have we used to have meetups, so that might come up again. So there are events planned around to say, how do you connect folks who have left, who've got a ton of experience, but who can actually add a lot of value to the founders again.
I just also wanted to mention we are the alumni, and we are free to set up the events that we want. That could be physical or digital meetups with or without like entrepreneurship as a team or startup.
Yeah, I'm going to be an alumni too, so happy to
Exactly.
set up a virtual one and I can come and talk anytime.
And I remember I was super eager to set up those events just as I left CERN, and then like other stuff becomes important in life. So I have a bad conscience, haven't been contributing too much lately. But if Johannes, if you have any, if you're interested in having events, I think you could talk to Rachel and feel free to suggest hosting them yourself. Isn't that right, Rachel?
Absolutely. So I was just going to add that on alumni.cern, we have groups. So we have regional groups and groups for the collaborations, but we've also got an entrepreneurship group. So if you're not a member yet, Johannes, I would very much recommend you join. I'm just going to find the link so that I can share it with you all. And so this is a dedicated space. Also, if you are keen on being more involved in the group, we can give you admin rights so that you're able to organize. I can see that Simona's just posted it. So you can get more involved. I know that Lars, you're, I think, one of the group managers. Maybe Ash would also like to be involved. So we can give you access to run this group, and then you can organize whatever you like, and we can support you in the activities and the events that you'd like to organize. We could facilitate if you want to organize something at CERN under the umbrella of the entrepreneurship group, or of course elsewhere. So don't hesitate to contact us.
I'll take a look at it. I didn't know about that actually. The downside is a bit. I'm constrained by my time, so that's always like the other side.
That's how it is.
Yeah, not enough time in the day, is there?
Speaking of, we're 2 minutes over. Really happy to see so many people here today. Rachel, do you want to say some final words?
Yeah, if I may. So I mean, Lars, it was great to see you again. Always fantastic to see you, Ash. And it's great to see so many people that have joined us from all across the world. It's amazing to see that this generates so much interest. So with everything we've discussed, please don't hesitate to contact either Ash, Lars, me, or Simona. For alumni-related stuff, you can contact me and Simona, and then all the entrepreneurship, also Ash and Lars. I know there's a lot of people that have contacted me privately in the chat who will probably be in touch soon. So a very, very big thank you to all of you. We hope that you found it useful and interesting.